Here we go again.
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the breach, dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections in mind. Jumanji, The Next Level is the next film in the now Jumanji universe. It is a direct sequel to the 2017 Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, which itself was a soft reboot of the original 1996 or 1995, I believe, Jumanji starring Robin Williams. And once again, this film stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Kevin Hart, Karen Gillan, Jack Black, as well as new guests Danny DeVito and Danny Glover. And once again, our heroes find themselves going back into the video game of Jumanji. However, as the title suggests, this is a whole new level with all new obstacles. And Spencer, the child who had inhabited the avatar of The Rock in the previous film, decides to go back into the game, and he is now stranded in Jumanji, and it's up to the team in order to find him. However, the wrinkle this time is that Spencer's grandfather, played by Danny DeVito, and Danny Glover, DeVito's former best friend, are now sucked into the game and now find themselves in the bodies of The Rock and Kevin Hart, respectively. And it is up to our friends in order to find Spencer and once again survive the world of Jumanji. Now, this video will contain spoilers of Jumanji: The Next Level, as well as certain other films and TV shows. I'll put a full list in the description below. I will be doing my spoiler-free thoughts on the film prior to getting into my spoiler-filled analysis, but just beware, there will be spoilers later on in the video. So with that in mind, let's get into some spoiler-free thoughts on Jumanji: The Next Level. Is it a good movie? Is it a good time? Is it worth seeing in the theaters? I would say it is definitely a good time, but I would say in theaters, that's a little bit more up to the judgment of the viewer. In my opinion, I would say it's not bad to see it in theaters. For sure, it's a fun time. I had fun watching this. I think this is a fun world and a fun concept to be in, and I always love seeing these actors once again thrown into this concept of they have to play more or less against type, and they have to survive the video game world of Jumanji, even though there are some certain differences between the previous film and this film. But overall, much like many sequels that have come before this film, the same thing with many films that have had a surprise hit that they didn't necessarily think that there was going to be a sequel. I'm sure there were plans for a sequel, but if the film didn't work out, if the previous film didn't work out, I'm sure it would have been no harm, no foul to just shelve those plans. But since the previous film was a surprise big hit, and in my opinion, one of the better films of 2017, this film, they put the plans out, and as far from what I read, they had a relatively short window in order to craft this film and it in such a way that it both justified its existence and tried to keep the magic of the previous film. And I feel like they mostly succeeded with this. However, the metaphor that I'm going with is if the previous film, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, had grabbed the rope of that film, the proverbial lightning in the bottle, as it were, to mix metaphors again. This film feels like it's let go of the rope, it's falling, it's grabbing the rope every now and again, it's got that spark, but it's still falling down in quality. And I feel like this is definitely a fun film, but it's not as good. Stop me if you've heard this before, the sequel's not as good as the original. I mean, yeah, let's face it. Yes, for quality's sake, this is the original Jumanji, this is the first Jumanji. So let's say this is not as good as the first one. There we go. This film, like I said, had some great moments. We have some great body swapping function with it. like I said before, Danny DeVito is his character is in the avatar of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So The Rock has to do his best Danny DeVito impression, and Kevin Hart has to do his best Danny Glover impression. And for the most part, they actually do a pretty good job. They do a good job of doing those impressions. And Karen Gillan is playing the same character as she did before, probably because she did a really great job before. I think she did a great job as was her name Martha, and she communicates that quite well before. And why mess with a good thing if you want to have one character that anchors you to the previous film, to the new film, even though we're the same actors? That's the fun of a body swap movie, as it were. And Jack Black, again, he just kills it. He just kills it. He killed it at the last movie. He kills it again in this one. This time, this might be a mild spoiler if you haven't seen the trailer of the film, but let's just go in and say, yes, Jack Black, instead of playing a teenage girl as he did in the previous film, this time he plays Fridge, who was previously in the body of Kevin Hart. So now he has to play a teenage black kid. So take that as well. But I feel like he does a good impression of the actor who plays the actor of Fridge. I can't remember his name off the top of my head in the real world. And he does a great job. And like I said, Jack Black just kills it every time. This whole movie. We'll go into some spoilers, talk later on, and how he kills it even more. But I mean, seriously, Jack Black is just one of the best parts of this movie. He just did great. And some negatives that I thought of this film. Again, we'll get into some more negative spoiler talk later, but some spoiler-free negatives of this film is I felt like the weaknesses of this film were apparent where the previous film, I had watched the previous Welcome to the Jungle, this one, prior to the night before seeing the new one, The Next Level. And I feel like this film does a great job in the fact that all four characters are start in place, and all four characters have growth, visible, like tangible growth throughout the entire movie, and then we feel that we get to see the effects of that at the end of the film. Here, there's slight amounts of growth between Danny DeVito and Danny Glover's character. As I said, they used to be they're best friends, and they're going through a bit of a tiff, and that's why they're in. That's where the most growth happens in this new film. Karen Gillan's character, Martha, stays pretty much the same. Fridge stays pretty much the same. Spencer stays pretty much the same. At the end of the previous film, Spencer and Martha were a thing, but now they're having some relationship issues. But their issues are kind of brought up fairly sporadically. And Bethany, again, I won't get into any spoilers, but she doesn't necessarily change at all in this one. And Alex is brought back into this, but he's sort of an afterthought. And the character work isn't really as solid as the previous film. It just, this film was mostly meant to dive back into the world of Jumanji and see what we didn't get to see before, mainly like with the baboons, or mandrills, I think they were called. Yes. And that's great. The special effects look pretty good here as well. And the story, the video game story, like the story that I feel like it's sort of a meta commentary that you kind of ignore the story in order to just get into the action. And that's sort of what's meant to happen here. But this one, it's harder to ignore the storyline in this one as it was in the previous one. But so there's a negative. And truth be told, The Rock doing a Danny DeVito and Kevin Hart doing a Danny Glover, their shtick kind of gets old really fairly fast, like probably within the first 10-ish, 15-ish minutes of them being their own thing, and they really don't move beyond that, and they kind of come back to it over and over again, and it kind of wears thin after a while. So those are my main negatives, And if that sounds unappealing to you, then maybe don't see it in theaters. But I definitely recommend checking it out in once it comes out on home media, Blu-ray, DVD, or streaming, what have you. As far as the letter grade goes, I would give Jumanji: The Next Level, let's go with a solid B. Whereas the previous film, Jumanji: The Welcome to the Jungle, I would have given an A-. I forget I don't think I gave it a letter grade in my review from 2 years ago, but I would say if this is an A-, then Jumanji: The Next Level is a solid B. It's not a great movie, but it is definitely a fun movie, and I think if you enjoyed the previous film, you'll get a kick out of it. You'll find enough to enjoy in this one too. Before we get, and then I'll give you some spoiler thoughts after I do my spoiler analysis. So at this point, I'll give you my second spoiler thought warning of where we're going to get. This is where the part where I do some spoiler-filled analysis of the film as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Now, Jumanji has, in this film as well as the previous film, there's that whole body swapping element, and yes, this is in the previous film, but some other fun examples that I thought of where this also has the fun element of the fact that the characters not only are in different bodies in the avatars themselves, as far as from like teenagers or college students into adult bodies, but they also get the chance to swap avatars within the game. So that's a fun new wrinkle in this movie, and I thought that was you could have seen this before in films such as the original Scooby-Doo live action film from I believe 2002. In the early 2000s, let's say. There's a great episode of Third Rock from the Sun that has Dick and Sally, John Lithgow, and now I'm blanking on her name. Yes, Dick and Sally, they switch bodies probably around season 4 or 5, and then they have to live as a man and a woman that they were opposite before. And we, as far as like ability swapping, because this is a video game and each avatar has different skills, different skill sets that they swap with their avatars. I could see that as similar to Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, where Johnny gets zapped by the Silver Surfer, and now he has the ability to touch one of the other Fantastic Four and then swap their powers with him, so he can become invisible. He can become like the Thing. He can become super stretchy. So there's that element to go about this. Also, the final fight in which the villain, who I forget his name, and you probably, if you've seen it, you probably have too. He's a very forgettable villain, but the villain, let's say, he gets onto his Jumanji blimp, which is kind of weird, and then The Rock, Spencer as The Rock, has to chase him down and defeat him. So he grabs the rope, ties it around a post to grab the blimp on there. He climbs his way up there, he gets onto the blimp, and then they have a nice little fist fight, and then the blimp is trying to fly away, but it's still strapped down, so it's flying into it scrapes the side of the fortress, and this blimp is sort of like a mano fight between like a supervillain and a superhero on a death machine. And not only is the setting of a blimp as the main confrontation part, this feels ripped straight out of A View to a Kill, the last Roger Moore era Bond film. But also, you could tie this back into both Captain America: The First Avenger and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, in which Captain America fights on a advanced flying machine against the main villain of the movie, and a large airship scraping against the building and inflicting damage, but still flying on, and then the hero and villain are still fighting on top of that. So there's just some brief points of comparison between Jumanji: The Next Level and things that have come before. Like I said before, some spoiler points of contention. I thought that once again we have the BS storyline that like I said, like in a regular video game, you kind of skip through the story parts in order to get to the action. And this one, it's once again about a jewel having to get placed somewhere, or in this case, having to get exposed to the sun. But the backstory was kind of written bad in that I believe it says, I remember thinking this as it was said, the Falcon Jewel, I believe it says, it grants life to the Valley of Jumanji, and as long as the sun shines upon it, then the valley is prosperous. But the villain takes it and then puts it in a box so the sun will not shine upon it, which makes me wonder, what happens when it gets dark, like at night? Does that mean every time it gets night, the land of Jumanji is like becomes a hellscape? I feel like that's sort of I mean, I'm sure it's not, but the way it was written, that seems like a major plot hole. I feel like that could have been written so that you wouldn't have that very obvious question on your hand. Also, like I said, the ending of this film, before I get to the ending of the film, the character growth, which, as I said, does not have as much, not all the characters really grow at all. Spencer and Martha's relationship, Spencer is back, goes back into the game to escape his personal troubles, insecurities, and then that gets addressed once. They kind of, all the other friends kind of castigate him for it. It's like, hey, what'd you do here? We were here to save you. Why would you do this, man? And then it gets dropped for a good hour of the movie. And then it gets brought up again when Spencer and Martha are climbing up an ice cliff. They have a nice little conversation. And then that's it. That's all we hear. That's problem resolved. Yay. That's all the growth we get out of them. Fridge is the same throughout all of this. Bethany, she gets trapped outside for like the first half of the movie, and then she gets brought into the game by Alex. Alex is kind of an afterthought. He has his little part to play, and that's about it. And then Bethany's a horse. That would have been funny had it not been spoiled in the trailers and the poster, but then they don't really do anything fun with it, and then she gets switched in. Danny Glover's character goes into the horse. Nothing really awesome happens there. I mean, he becomes a Pegasus. Okay, great. That was kind of built up. It was kind of built up, and then that was sort of a letdown. And then, like I said, the ending where we have they're in the diner. Danny DeVito's in the main world. He gets the offer from Nora, who was the person who bought the diner from DeVito and Glover, and now DeVito's going to become the new manager of the diner to help out. And the core four, Fridge, Spencer, Martha, and Bethany, are in the diner having a nice little Christmassy dinner thing. And then some random dude trips the broken Jumanji game, and now a flock of ostriches is flocking down the street, which is teasing a third movie. However, no, we've already done that. The original Jumanji, we did that. The reason that this worked so well is because it was radical enough that instead of going Jumanji coming into the real world, we go into the world of Jumanji in the form of a video game. That's it. Don't repeat this again. Stop it. You did good. Just no. So there you have it. There are my thoughts on Jumanji, the next level. But what did you think of the movie? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything? I probably missed something. I haven't seen all the movies. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to check out my next movie review, which will be for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which comes out December 20th. Be sure to look for that review. And also, if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, a share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.